Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your host, Jake and Scott. In this week's episode, we are talking to our good friend, Pete. You'll find out which Pete here soon, so sit back and buckle in to the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. Pete, it's great to have you back. You are always a welcome here on the Bourbon Lens, but how are things going in North Carolina?
Well, we're doing just fine. Like you, we're suffering under a little bit of this deluge, this like early winter weather.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we're cranking here. So lots of new and interesting projects.
Yeah, you staying busy in and outside of the distillery, I'm sure?
Yeah, I just got back from Bar Convent Berlin. That was a blast. It was actually like a huge shot in the arm. It turns out that people in Europe are in a much better mood than we are here in the US right now. I can't really explain why, but it was great. Yeah. I mean, I came back just kind of pumped.
All right, let's do it. How did the international scene enjoy some of the whiskeys that you all were able to taste with them, I'm sure?
You guys, kind of what the bar convent scene is. And if you think about bar convent, it's really geared more towards the trade, towards the
Mm-hmm.
bartenders and the on premise. If you've ever attended, it's a huge, huge party like Bar Convent Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
It's like three buildings of brands, and it's a huge party. A lot of fun, great if you're a brand, but our business is, yes, we have a brand, but the brand is really an opportunity to demonstrate what our capabilities are as a contract distiller. It's contract distilling first and everything else kind of, comes next. But so many of our clients we're under NDA with, we don't really get to show it off. And so the brand becomes a way to show it off. So we attended Bar Convent Berlin, or excuse me, Brooklyn this year. It was great, but we just kind of walked the show. Everybody said, man, you really need to go to Berlin, but actually, spend the money, set up and do the show. So we did. I was a little skeptical, but I love doing business in Germany. I just love the culture and just enjoy the environment. But Berlin was a new scene for me. Hadn't really spent any time there, but Bar Convent Berlin was totally different than kind of what I expected. So it really did cater more towards, I wouldn't say towards folks like me who were a source, but there were a lot of brands that were very interested in talking about sourcing
Mm.
American whiskey, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing that really came out of it is that these guys are super sophisticated. They know their distillates. They really know their distillates.
Mm.
And, so we take our regular offering of American whiskeys and everybody's super complimentary about, again, just the quality. And I think that the consumer in general, the brand or the market in general was more focused on quality more so than ever. But again, the level of sophistication, it was a real learning experience. So because here we go to a show in the US and everybody wants, super old. The focus is on age, not as much as it used to be, but still provenance. Okay, where is it made? And then strength. Everybody wants this super high proof cast strength. And if I go to a show in the US and we don't have something that's old, super dark, and high proof, it's like the exact opposite is what we found in Berlin. Their palate is very different. So the lower proof products really resonated. A lot of the younger products really resonated. Of course, it's a great distillate, but you don't have the tannin heavy,
Mm.
really oaky extractions that you get with the older products. And what we learned is that Europeans, prefer things around. I don't mean to be overly simplistic, but the market response we got is we like the 90 to 100 proof rather than the 120 proof, right? And the younger products with less extraction, less tannins. I will tell you that the kind of the sweetheart of the show, not just for us, but we had, that old commercial, I told a friend, they told a friend, so forth and so on. Well, that was going on. So the thing that really got the buzz around the show in Berlin was our ASM, the American Single Malt, which
Mm.
we knew because we were in Dusseldorf at Pro Wine last year and a couple of other international shows that whole malt thing really, we knew it was going to be big.
Mm-hmm.
ASM, there's always been a lot of interest around. I was just really surprised with how much focus and attention we got on the ASM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think people are craved for something new in that space, right? Obviously, Scotch has been doing it forever, and then the Irish will argue that they've been doing it longer than forever. or vice versa, so it's definitely interesting to see the American spin on it, right? A lot of new charred oak, so some differences there, or it could be obviously in used cooperage. For them, the people that are used to single malts, what was the buzz that you all were getting out of that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Number one is that, while, bourbon is near and dear to our hearts here in the United States, when we go outside the US, people are kind of scratching their head. They don't really understand what bourbon can be.
Mm,
They think Jim Beam. Yeah, they think Jack Daniels, even though the folks at Brown Forman would tell you Jack Daniels is a Tennessee whiskey, the rest of the world is going to call it a bourbon. I think that a lot of the international market, again, kind of scratches their head when they think about corn as being the primary grain constituent. Malt is an international product. It's understood and enjoyed internationally. So it doesn't matter if we're talking about Japan, India, anywhere throughout Southeast Asia, Europe, etc. People understand malt, even if we go down into South America. So number one, it didn't take a lot of explanation. People already understand it. What they're looking for is, okay, what makes it different?
mm.
We understand what Scotch is. We understand what Irish is, even, Japanese. We understand what is this American single malt and what makes it different. So, Jake, you hit the nail on the head. I think people are looking for something that's not just different, but they're also looking for something that's different and great.
Mm.
And I think that that's what American single malt offers. And it can be a very unique offering. And the focus is on can be, doesn't have to be, but it can be.
That's true. And you all, came out with your American single malt expression, but, long before that, you've been selling American single malt barrels, right? So people have probably tried some contract Statesville distillate out in the open source market. So for you all being able to kind of go around the world and express, or see this expression of American single malt, when did you all actually start laying down this expression for customers?
About 8 years ago.
Okay.
And so, we designed our facility specifically to do malt at scale, but it's not easy to run malt, particularly not in a continuous process, and we can get into the nuances of how we run it, what makes it different, and what I think really kind of makes American single malt different. But I've thought for a long time that American Single Malt was going to kind of ride on the coattails of bourbon, and it was going to be the next big play in American whiskeys, and probably would be one of the things that maybe a predominant player in the export market. And so when we designed the facility, we designed it specifically to run ASM at scale, but in what I would consider to be a traditional American manufacturing process and format.
So that leads us to the question that we were talking about prior to this. Does it go through your traditional column still distillation process, or do you have pots on site that you can run pot distillation for?
Yeah, we do have a pot on site, but anything that we're running outside of a real esoteric specialty product for a client is going to run on the column. So when we started running the malt, we kind of perfected, okay, what did we want to do? How did we want to do it? Yeast strains, all this kind of stuff. We did kind of work that out on the pot.
Mm,
But ultimately, like anything else, we scaled it to the columns, but we designed, our Vendome columns in a way that they could be controlled and run so that we could effectively run that malt. Malt is, it's going to be 34 to 38 pounds per bushel, whereas your typical, bourbon or rye is going to be 56 plus or minus pounds per bushel if we look at the mash bill. You've got all those husks, you've got that different density. It's not easy to run. It tends to blind over a continuous process. So you have to have a process that's designed to accommodate that. And you have to have controls that support that on that process. So we have all of that, but it was baked in 12 years ago when we designed the plant. But everything that we have sold, I think to date, has all been run on a column. And I'll go a step further, and just kind of give you the full production process. But when we talk about running American Single Malt, again, the cool thing about American Single Malt is that it's open. There's enough flexibility in the definition that it allows makers to kind of do it the way they want.
hmm
The big thing is it's got to be malt. So we're running 100% malt. Number one is we're not using, typically any smoked or peated malt. We think that malt is a really, really interesting grain just in and of itself. So when we're running our base, even if we're going to use it for blending, it's just malt with no smoke, nothing added. But again, we're doing it in a traditional American process. So it's direct steam injection in the cooker. Right. From there, we're not lautering. We're not taking that grain out, stripping the grain out. It's grain on into the fermenters, just like bourbon and rye whiskeys. The other thing is that I really like our yeast that we have kind of developed over the years, and we like the results. So we use a lot of those same strains and varieties in the malt, which produces flavors that we appreciate. And I think that a lot of people do. But, from there, it's going to go into a standard Vendome 16 tray continuous column. We're running it, grain on, direct steam injection, continuous process, and the result is something that it's very, very different. It stands on its own, but it is not going to be something that's terribly foreign to an American whiskey enthusiast. So if you love bourbon, this is not going to be totally like off the mark. But if you're a big Scotch drinker, you're also going to understand this. So I think that it kind of straddles a space where we've taken all of the things that we love about American whiskey, but we've done it instead of with the bourbon or rye, we've done it with the malt. And that was the thing that so many of the international clients have responded to, is that it's not foreign to us, we get it, but it is unique.
Yeah.
It's uniquely American.
Mm, that's cool. Scott, you got it in your glass.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good playground, right? So like the version that came out as a limited release from Southern Star, 6 years, age stated, no unique barrel is my understanding, but it's a little bit higher proof. But I feel like it lends itself to like, I want to play with some different barrel finishes and like adding some additional flavors to this as well, because I think what you said, it makes a lot of sense now that I've tasted it. This is my second occasion, but it does straddle that line between traditional American whiskey with certain malt characteristics, but it doesn't go so far into like European malts.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, admittedly, we just recorded a podcast with Westland American Single Malt. It's way different.
Well, and there's a reason for that is
Yeah.
that, I think Westland does a great job. Virginia Distilling does a great job. Balconies does a great job. But so many quote unquote American single malts really lean into and give a nod to a classic European malt
Style.
production process. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. We
Yeah.
respect that. We just took a different approach.
Yeah.
Instead of like leaning into traditional Scotch production, we leaned into traditional American whiskey production and ended up with something that's totally different.
Yeah.
So this is intended to be I guess a canvas, for lack of a better term, a really great canvas to build on. So this is where you would take your you know, maybe a smoky or a cherry smoked or a peated malt, what we would call a character malt, and blend in on top of this and
Yeah.
or just do some specialty barrel finishes. But you've got to have a really solid foundation. And that's kind of what this is. And that's what we wanted to release. We wanted people to see where it starts and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad I got that explanation, because that's exactly, I think I mentioned it to Jake before we even hopped back on this call, but I was like, this is a great, you said it, canvas. It's got the American whiskey elements of, the caramels, the vanillas, a little bit of grain, a little
Yeah.
bit of like the grass note, but it's got plenty of age, so you get some nice barrel influence. And then you also release this at a cast strength, I believe. But
Yeah, this
100
is just under 115. I think it's 114.8. And quite honestly, I like to put a little water in it because I think you put a little water in it really opens it up. And I
Yeah.
think it's more nuanced at a little lower proof. But again, as a contract producer, it's our job to produce products that brands can really develop. And we wanted to say, here it is in the raw. Now you think about what you can do with this.
Yeah.
it's proof, if secondary finishing, whatever.
It's so interesting because like I don't look at the back of the bottles enough to know like how much contract, and you all can pump out a lot of liquid out of that facility that you all created. Your brands have done phenomenally, right? And continue to grow. How do you balance that, right? You and your wife, you all are a dynamic duo. I feel like doing a lot of things.
Too
How do
much.
you balance,
Are you looking for
the
marriage
left hand
advice
and the
here?
right hand?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I would tell you that right now we probably do way too much. And, the short answer is that we built our distillery to be a contract producer from day
Yeah.
one. That's always been the focus. It continues to be the focus. And again, the brand is near and dear to our heart, but the brand is really an extension of the contract production.
Yeah.
I look at, some of the other folks that are out there and, well, they're doing contract productions, but, ultimately their trajectory is to be the brand. I love doing contract production. I love working with our clients.
Mm.
We always want to do contract production and be a part of helping other people build their portfolios. It's really interesting. Right now today, we work with 180 different unique customers and brands. And so there's always something new. There's always a new project. I get bored really easy. If I
Shocker.
was just working on my stuff, I'm not sure I would I might have to tap out because I think I would get bored. But the brand, again, we're super proud of it, but it gives us an ability to, without worrying about, non-disclosures and all the other stuff, just to go out and show folks what we can do,
Yeah.
show our capabilities. So if we can win these double platinums, best in class, best in category for our wee little brand, we can also do this for you.
Well, and that's what got me on this one. So the other kind of release that you all put out is the bottled and bond rye whiskey, right? So like when you think about craft brands, if they want something craft, like having a rye whiskey that's bottled and bond, and then showcasing what you all did. And this is again an age dated whiskey. I think this one's 7 years old, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe six. But this was age dated in the press release. you know, I can see what you all are doing a little bit more clearly now. Cause when the press release came out that you all were really kind of rebranding and talking a lot more about the contract distillation, I was like, huh, what? Like, I love their whiskey. Like, what's going on
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, and so that deserves an explanation. And, I can tell you that we weren't necessarily in love with that idea because we've been Southern Distilling Company, proud makers of Southern Star, but Southern Distilling Company, proud
Yeah.
makers of a lot of products for a lot of people for more than a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And when, the marketing geniuses came to us and said, "Oh, well, you need to create distinction between the brand and the contract production." I was like, "Okay, and why?" "Oh, well, we think it's too regional." I'm like, "Wait a minute. It's too regional. Southern Distilling, that's a pretty big region. Town Bourbon seems to be doing okay, and that's just like a town. That's pretty regional." I'm not sure I buy that argument. And then they were like, "Well, it's confusing because people see the Southern Star brand and then they see Southern Distilling and it's confusing." So anyway, we were like, "Okay, we also need to be making more noise." At the end of the day, that's really what drove it. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, we have been a very, very quiet actor in this space. We've been doing really, really good work, but nobody really knows who we are, and we had to be much, much louder. And so for all of the other reasons that the marketing folks said you need to do this, the real reason as far as I was concerned is that, okay, we need to get out there and yell and
Yeah.
promote what we're doing in the contract space, and this gives us an opportunity to do it. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if the marketing people want me sharing that, but it's too late, I just did.
Well, the good thing is, who are they going to call with their complaint? You or your wife?
Yeah, yeah, and we don't have a board, so it's just me and Vienna, so it's like a very small group.
Yeah.
Yeah. The buck stops here,
Yeah,
literally
that's right.
and figuratively.
That's right. But I mean, I think the other thing is it's Statesville Contract Distilling. We're in Statesville, North Carolina, right?
Makes
And I
Yeah.
sense.
think the one thing that's really cool about this is that, it could be Statesville, Iowa, Statesville, Oklahoma, Statesville, whatever. Statesville speaks to America,
Mm-hmm.
into American whiskey and what it can be, no matter where that brand is. It's not about us. It's not about the South or the North or the West, or even God bless Kentucky. It's about America, right?
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
that's really kind of what promoted me to pursue it.
Yeah, for sure. And so just I have one other question about the contract, right? So like how are you all set up to run multiple unique mash bills? So let's say a client is like, hey, I want to run bourbon, rye, and whatever, but I also want to run like I want to run a low rye bourbon and a high rye bourbon. Like how quickly and how hard is that for you all to transition over? Because we talk about the technology in
Like
Kentucky all the
that,
time. So that
like
you all
that.
have
And so
nice.
it's the technology and the fact that we designed to be able to turn this guy on a dime.
Mm,
We are not the biggest producer out there, but we are probably the most nimble. We can turn it on and off in a heartbeat. I can literally, I can run 2 mash bills simultaneously because I've got 2 separate columns.
yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
is duplicative, or if we've got a larger contract, we can literally switch mash bills over the course of one shift. And that's just because, my background is design and engineering. I built manufacturing plants my entire career before I got to build mine. And so I just put all the bells and whistles into it that I thought that, we might use, and it's come in pretty handy
Mhm.
because of that reason. And it's not just the ability to run different and unique mash bills. Moreover, it's the ability to really run those high wines the way that the client wants it, right? And so
Mhm.
we can really control those stills so that we're getting low wines and levels of rectification, and we can dial that in better than most, and then get that high wine out really dialed in the way that that consumer or that client wants it, but then we can duplicate it over and over and over again.
Yeah, if you wanted to run it like only 14 plates instead of 16, you all can
We can
stop.
do all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's other people in the industry that are spending a lot of time talking about technology and innovation, but, we've been doing that just not quite as loud for, the past decade,
Mhm.
and I would put our level of industrial controls, automation, things that really allow us to define the nuances of these products. I mean, I'll go head to head with anybody on what we can turn out. And it's process, it's equipment, but you put the best tools in the wrong hands, you don't get a great result. So it takes all three of those.
Hmm.
100%. And like it's shown out because like we'll take Brothers Bond, right? Because you all did a collaborative partnership. And so that's not
Yeah.
one under NDA. I'm like with the regenerative farming and
Their
agricultural.
latest release that we just put in bottle a couple of weeks ago. There it is.
Yeah. So, the guys have been doing good stuff, but it's also winning awards. And so like you're all bottles in or liquid in bottles has been successful nationwide and people like them trust you all to continue to make sourced great product for the contract product, not source contract product for them that meets their standards and what they want in a bottle of bourbon or rye
You
whiskey.
know Ian, and Ian wants it really, really specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's interesting is that, the other thing is that, we control a lot of barrels. So we've got 75,000 barrels that we can control, different mash bills, different ages, different cooperage, so while the product that we've released for these guys at Regen, we didn't lay that down specifically for Ian and Paul, but when it came time to build out a product that was really unique and special for them, we had 75,000 barrels in the library to pull from and choose from.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like too much of a good thing, I mean, I swear to God, I love Ian like a brother, but I was like, dude, I bring him in here with all these choices. He will never leave.
Kid in the
So
candy store.
we'll find him in the Rick House next month.
Yeah.
Did you kill a cow for him to come in so you could have plenty of steak and work off your bourbon whiskey as you go through it?
Well, we have some very nice spin grain fed cattle on site. Yes. Yeah. And we've got some in the freezer. So the answer
Yeah.
is yes.
That's that's the true reason I want to get down there because I know Pete's got good cattle down there, and that's
That's right.
want to have a good barbecue because that's when the good stories come out is
That's
when you're
right. Good
barbecuing food.
barbecue over a couple of good pours. That's right.
Man,
So I added a few drops of water, going back to the American Single Malt, a few drops of water to this, and it's just like caramel candy, like Werther's candy. It just gets
Isn't that
very,
crazy how that just like totally changes it?
like, proofing it down makes it more concentrated in flavor. It's just, yeah, it's definitely interesting. Yeah, it's nice.
The great debate is high proof more full flavor than whiskey that has been diluted in some way, shape, or form.
I think that yes is the answer. I mean, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends. But more is not always better. And I think with this malt product, that just kind of demonstrates it. So anytime I'm tasting somebody, I was like, yeah, it needed to be cask, but take that cask and then just dilute a little bit, and you're going to find it just really metamorphosizes.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing about this product, I should have told you, I think this is your second sample that you guys have gotten. I think you got maybe a sample that we did for that LTO that we did with Bruzel. So that was 100% new oak, right?
Mm.
What you guys are sampling now, or at least Scott is, Jake, we need to get you a sample. It's
He
a blend.
doesn't live too far from me. Just couldn't arrange for
Yeah.
pickup.
Well, now you got those tires inflated. You can go by and pick them
Yeah.
up, right? But this is a blend of new and used oak.
Mm.
And I'm going to tell you, when I went into, I was convinced without any question that when I released this first LTO for us, that it was going to be all new oak. And then I went into my blending lab, which is my bar at my kitchen table, right? And I was like, oh man, I was wrong. It's got to be a blend. It's got to be a blend of old and new barrels, old and new cooperage.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a nice thing when you have a lot of extra barrels, you have some way to fill some of those back up on the back end, right?
Right.
If you're running
Is it
malt.
used? Is it used
barrel bark.
bourbon?
Yeah, that's a used bourbon barrel.
Yeah.
And everything that we're doing, over the last 4 or 5 years has been going into our Paragon casks or our wheated
Or the
bourbon.
wheated.
But what you were sampling there, the used barrel was Weller. That was a Weller barrel that we sourced.
The wheated secondary barrels tend to do pretty good. I feel like with the sweetness perspective. I wish more people would play with rye secondary barrels, like ex-rye barrels. I think that would lend a lot of cool flavors, like the citrus notes into that. But you've got time, man. Just
It's a good
next run.
idea. I have not done that, but I'm just going, that's a good idea for third quarter LTO. We should start working on that.
Especially, I mean, remind me, Jake, but you're drinking the rye, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the rye to me, what I recall was a big pop of orange,
Yep.
that citrus. Just
it's orange and caramel. It's got kind of that nice. It's a meatier one. It's meaty on the palate. It's not as astringent or spicy. It's more fruity and citrusy. So I think it would lend really well, getting a little bit of that tannin extract in there with that. If the barrels are slightly wet, it could be really good.
So the rye, did we talk about the mash bill in this at all?
No, we haven't.
Are you interested?
Yes.
Well, no, Pete, we're not interested at all.
I'm just trying to be respectful.
Give us all the details.
Hanging up right now. See you later, guys.
So, I'm just curious. What do you taste here? What would you compare it to? I will tell you, it's not a typical mash bill. It's typical for us, but it's not typical necessarily for the industry.
So I would compare this to the closest thing I can tell you that this smells like is Outrider, which is from Wyoming Whiskey, which is a 49% rye bourbon or rye whiskey. Steve Nally said he would not make a rye whiskey ever. He held true to that, and made this kind of monster. So I would say this is probably a 60% rye, 30% kind of deal. That's kind of, because it does lean to a little bourbon note to it.
You know how I would respond to that, Jake?
What?
You've got a really good palate.
Yes.
Oh, don't make his head bigger than it already is. Look at how big that hat is.
Get ready for that.
Barely.
Look how big that hat is.
Yeah, take the hat off. It's getting ready to blow up. So this is a barely legal rye, right?
Yeah.
So it's a mash bill. We all know it's just not super prevalent. It's a 51-39-10, 51% rye, 39% corn, 10% malted barley. So, it's, without naming names, there's not a lot of products that have that mash bill, but we probably all know who they are and super unique. But, everybody's like, well, why do you make what you make? Well, when I was laying down wheated bourbon, everybody was like, you're crazy. Why are you laying down all this wheated bourbon? It's because I love wheated bourbon. So I'm going to make wheated bourbon. And now today, it's like, sure, I'm glad I made wheated bourbon because people like it, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the rye. No shit. When we were deciding, a decade ago, what are we going to do? We went to the liquor store. We bought literally like 28 bottles of rye, everything that we could find. And we just started blind sampling. And then ultimately we ended up with this bad boy, which was that barely legal 513910. And that's become kind of our cornerstone.
Yeah, I like it because it gives all the good stuff of the rye and then just tracks what like kind of turns people off on rye, which is that like high spearmint pine solly note. Like you don't get that because it's not all that spice. It is more of the creme brulee type of experience.
It's accessible, right?
Exactly.
It's an accessible rye. It's not an acquired taste. My dad always said, my God, we're supposed to be having fun. If you got to acquire a taste for it, why do it, right? You shouldn't have to
Exactly.
work to enjoy it. And this is one of those ryes that you don't have to work to enjoy it. It has just enough spice to pump through like in an old fashioned or something like that, but it's not too much. So it's not abusive, right?
For sure.
What's interesting is that when we have our tour guests come through here to the distillery, quite often, a lot of times it's guys and they're dragging their significant others, through here and like, I don't like whiskey. I don't like bourbon. It's amazing how many women who are not big whiskey fans really, really gravitate towards this product, which you would not expect the undeveloped palate to, oh, I like rye, but it's a different kind of rye.
It's almost like the rye knocks off some of the edges of the corn that people might not like. And then the corn knocks off some of the rougher edges of the rye, which people don't like.
You know what? I've never thought about it that way, but I think that you're exactly right.
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right.
Well, and the last thing on that is having a high barley content gives it the viscosity and the mouthfeel that you want out of this. So it does make it approachable. It's not like that astringent burn. So the mash bill lends itself to a very drinkable whiskey, right? I think sometimes we think of sharp edges as a good thing because that's how people pick single barrels or whatever. But like sometimes we miss out of the fact that like if you've created a really nice distillate with a really nice blend of product, that roundness is actually what you're searching for.
I
Because
just had Jared Record in here from Barrel King. Matter of fact, he's been texting me while we've been on this call. I don't know if you know Jared, but super, super great guy. He and his wife, Rachel, and of course they do just great blends. But they were in here Friday, and we're doing a little project with him, and it was just like, okay, this is a really, what he gave us to work with had a lot of sharp edges. And we
mhm,
were both like, we just need to hug this. We need to like put our arms around this and round it out. And what was super interesting is that we went to a 70-20-10 ride that I had done for a client that didn't take delivery. And I'm glad he didn't because it turned out to be one of the best products that we've ever made. And that rye just completely rounded it out. Well,
mhm.
I would agree with you. Sharp edges are good, but they get to be a little uncomfortable sometimes, right?
For sure. And it's fun as a fun project to have a pour here and there of, but like we always gravitate towards the pour that is accessible, right? If I don't really want to think about a whiskey, I want an accessible pour. So I go to whatever is simple and easy, that is rounded and easy to drink. If I pick up something and I sniff it, I've poured whiskey down the drain because I'm like, nope, not
I don't
today.
want to work that hard. Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. Scott, every Thursday night, JTS Brown.
It's my Thursday night whiskey. I was like,
I don't know.
sometimes you just don't want to think about it. Like, yeah, you want to share like a unique whiskey with like multiple people, But who's having all those bourbon tastings all the time? Most of the time, it's just, I'm going to go grab a bottle off the bar. I'm going to pour something. Doesn't require a lot of thought. I know it's going to be good. It's going to be comforting. Most people do that in the kitchen. Go to the kitchen. You know what you want to make. You make it.
Guys, I am completely there with you. It is,
Yeah.
you want that meatloaf, right? You want that comfort food dish that just is like, oh, great.
I want hamburger Monday. I want taco Tuesday. I want consistency and you know what? Friday, Saturday, Sundays for exploration.
Cheers to that.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, Pete, first and foremost, just continue doing what y'all are doing. Like, love having you on, love your spirit, but like continue making great whiskey that everybody can enjoy. That's the first thing.
I don't know what else I would do, Jake. I don't. So I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to give you a little teaser. We'll send 2 bottles out so you both get this. This is what's dropping next week.
Okay.
So this is our Paragon finished in honey barrels.
I did like the first honey. I like the first honey a lot.
Swear to God, this is better than the first honey. And that first honey, it was kind of a mistake. We pissed off a lot of people because we didn't make enough. But we dumped 10 barrels in this blend, 10 barrels of Paragon. It's really, really good. I'll put it in the mail tomorrow. You guys will have it. But enjoy it. Look at the color. It's like,
oh my gosh,
gorgeous. Yeah. So it's been developing, I think, for the last 10 months. So North Carolina wildflower honey with North Carolina wheated bourbon on top of it. It's a great mix.
I feel like there's a hot toddy in my future.
Well, guys, thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode. Cheers.
All right. Cheers.